Hello, welcome to the Self Learning Podcast by Dr. Sushma Singh. Let us start discussion on Chapter 5 Change and Development in Industrial Society. And our topic is Industrialization in India. And subtopic is the specificity of Indian industrialization. The experience of industrialization in India is in many ways similar to the Western model and in many ways different. Comparative analysis of different countries suggests that there is no standard model of industrial capitalism. Let us start with one point of difference relating to what kind of work people are doing. In developed countries, the majority of people are in the service sector, followed by industry, and less than 10% are in agriculture. In India, in 1999-2000, nearly 60% were employed in the primary sector, agriculture and mining, 17% in the secondary sector, manufacturing, construction and utilities, and 23% in the tertiary sector, trade, transport, financial services, etc. However, if you look at the contribution of these sectors to economic growth, the share of agriculture has declined sharply, and services contribute approximately half. This is a very serious situation because it means that the sector where the maximum people are employed is not able to generate much income for them. Another major difference between the developing and developed countries is the number of people in regular salaried employment. In developed countries, the majority are formally employed. In India, over 50% of the population is self-employed. Only about 14% are in regular salaried employment, while the approximately 30% are in casual labor. Economists and others often make a distinction between the organized or formal and unorganized or informal sector. There is a debate over how to define these sectors. According to one definition, the organized sector consists of all units employing 10 or more people throughout the year. These have to be registered with the government to ensure that their employees get proper salaries or wages, pension, and other benefits. In India, over 90% of the work, whether it is in agriculture, industry, or services, is in unorganized or informal sector. What are the social implications of this small size of the organized sector? First, it means that very few people have the experience of employment in large firms where they get to meet people from other regions and backgrounds. Urban settings do provide some corrective to this. Your neighbors in a city may be from a different place, but by and large, work for most Indians is still in small scale workplaces. Here, personal relationships determine many aspects of work. If the employer likes you, you may get a salary rise, and if you have a fight with him or her, you may lose your job. This is different from a large organization with well defined rules where recruitment is more transparent and there are mechanisms for complaints and redressal. if you disagree with your immediate superior. Second, very few Indians have access to secure jobs with benefits. Of course, those who do, two-thirds work for the government. This is why government jobs are so popular. The rest are forced to depend on their children in their old age. Government employment in India has played a major role in overcoming boundaries of caste, religion, and reason. One sociologist has argued that the reason why there have never been communal rights in a place like Bhilai is because the public sector Bhilai steel plant employs people from all over India who work together. Others may question this. Third, since very few people are member of unions, a feature of the organized sector, they do not have the experience of collectivity fighting for proper wages and safe drinking water, safe working conditions. The government has laws to monitor conditions in an organized sector, but in practice they are left to the whims and fancies of the employer or contractor. Now let us move to the next point, industrialization in the early years of the Indian independence. The first modern industries in India were cotton, jute, coal mines, and railways. After independence, the government took over the commanding heights of the economy. This involved defense, transport and communication, power mining, and other projects which only government had the power to do, and which was also necessary for private industry to flourish. In India's mixed economy policy, some sectors were reserved for government, while others were open to the private sector. But within that, the government tried to ensure, through its licensing policy, that industries were spread over different regions. Before independence, industries were located mainly in the port cities like Madras, Bombay, Calcutta. But since then, we see that places like Vadodara, Coimbatore, Bangalore, Pune, Faridabad, and Rajkot have become important industrial centers. The government also tried to encourage the small scale sector through special incentives and assistance. Many items like paper and wood products, stationery, glass, and ceramics were reserved for the small scale sector. In 1991, large scale industry employed only 28% of the total workforce engaged in manufacture, while the small scale and the traditional industry employed 72%. Now, the next point is globalization, liberalization, and change in Indian industry. Since the 1990s, however, the government has followed a policy of liberalization. Private companies, especially foreign firms, are encouraged to invest in sectors earlier reserved for the government, including telecom, civil aviation, power, etc. Licenses are no longer required to open industries. Foreign products are now easily available in Indian shops. As a result of liberalization, many Indian companies have been bought over by multinationals. At the same time, some Indian companies are becoming multinational companies. An instance of the first is when Pearl Drinks was bought by Coca-Cola. Pearl's annual turnover was rupees 250 crores, while Coca-Cola's advertising budget alone was rupees 400 crores. This level of advertising has naturally increased the consumption of Coke across the India, replacing many traditional drinks. The next major area of liberalization may be in retail. Do you think that Indians will prefer to shop in departmental stores, or will they go out of business? The government is trying to sell its share in several public sector companies, a process which is known as disinvestment. Many government workers are scared that after disinvestment they will lose their jobs. In modern foods, which was set up by the government to make healthy bread available at cheap prices, and which was the first company to be privatized, 60% of the workers were forced to retire in the first 5 years. Let us see how this fits in with the worldwide trends. More and more companies are reducing the number of permanent employees and outsourcing their work to smaller companies or even to homes. For multinational companies, this outsourcing is done across the globe, with developing countries like India providing cheap labor. Because small companies have to compete for orders from the big companies, they keep wages low and working conditions are often poor. It is more difficult for trade unions to organize in smaller firms. Almost all companies, even government ones, now practice some form of outsourcing and contracting, but the trend is especially visible in the private sector. To summarize, India is still largely an agricultural country. The service sector, shops, banks, the IT industry, hotels, and other services are employing more people, and the urban middle class is growing. Along with urban middle class values like those we see in television serials and films. But we shall also see that very few people in India have access to secure jobs, with even the small number in regular salaried employment becoming more insecure due to the rise in contract labor. So far, employment by the government was a major avenue for increasing the well-being of the population, but now even that is coming down. Some economists debate this, but liberalization and privatization worldwide appear to be associated with a rising income inequality. You will be reading more about this in the next chapter on globalization. At the same time, as secure employment in large industries is declining, the government is embarking on a policy of land acquisition for industry. These industries do not necessarily provide employment to the people of the surrounding areas, but they cause major pollution. Many farmers, especially Adivasis, who constitute approximately 40% of those displaced, are protesting at the low rates of compensation and the fact that they will be forced to become casual labor, living and working on the footpaths of the India's big cities. In the following section, we will look at how people find work, what they actually do in their workplaces, and what kind of working conditions they face. Now, let us wind up the session, and thank you very much for engaging yourself with the Self Learning Podcast.